This is a question only you can answer.
Incredible and powerful, it is my honor to present to you Miss Daisy Gedaron.
Wow, I've only seen that about 1,000 times, and every time I watch it, I get moved. It never stops stirring me. As the young, beautiful Manel just said, if Lebanon becomes a nation in my lifetime, she'll move back there. And my commitment is we're going to do everything we can to make that happen. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm going to talk to you today about the role of art in amplifying the voice of a small community on a global platform in a way to bring in philanthropy into this track that we're talking about today. So allow me to begin. Art, through its various forms, music, painting, sculpture, graffiti, dance, and in my case, film, is critical in the work for social justice, as frequently they are the only things that can reach people, that can provide comfort or generate the visceral, raw emotions needed for social change. When I was a child growing up in Sydney, there was a lot of racism, and particularly against the Lebanese, because I was 10 when the war broke out in Lebanon. And so the only news we ever received about Lebanon was about the brutal and bloody civil war. Whilst my parents knew Lebanon as the Paris of the Middle East, as a centre of banking, culture, liberalism, and sophistication, I only knew Lebanon as a land of violence, terrorists, warmongers, and kidnappers, where Muslims, Christians, and Druze hated each other, killed each other. Basically, there was nothing good that came out of that country. Or at least, that's how I perceived it. So I wanted nothing to do with it. I mean, at home, we ate Lebanese food and spoke Arabic, but outside the home, I was an Aussie. I didn't know the stories of Lebanon's prehistoric beginnings, where recent radiocarbon dating at Qsara, 10 kilometres from Beirut, indicated that the early humans may have lived there approximately 45,000 years ago. I didn't know that the Phoenicians gave the world the alphabet, or that the Romans relied on Lebanon's fertile Bekaa Valley to feed their entire empire for more than 200 years. I didn't know Jesus Christ performed his first miracle, turning water into wine at Cana. And I can go on and on, modern times, the Mamluks and Fakhruddin, and so much more I didn't know. But my point is, I didn't know, because the media told us only one side of the story and not the whole picture. And this is not only relevant to Lebanon, but many countries, people, places, events, and issues around the world. And it's not to blame the media, but rather to acknowledge that their role in providing us with a full and factual understanding of any story is limited and must not be relied upon solely. Back then, like with my current film, I decided the world needed to know more. The world needed to know the full story. The world needed to know the truth about Lebanon. And as a journalist, I felt it was incumbent upon me to tell that story. Rather than just write another article, publish another book, produce another news report, I wanted to create something that would last the test of time and provide proof for generations to come. I chose film then and now because the visual medium is the most widely consumed genre of information in the world. It was 30 years ago when I made my first film, Lebanon in Prison Splendor, with the late, great Omar Sharif, and I happened to meet someone here who met me 30 years ago and saw my film back then, and it's still true today. With both films, my objective was to educate and enlighten. With Imprisoned Splendor, I wanted to amplify the story of a nation's journey through history onto a global platform using art. With Enough, I wanted to amplify the voices of the embattled and battered people who had lost their voice, lost their will, and were losing hope. Their story so moved and infuriated me that I wanted to agitate and rally millions around the world to help Lebanon. So I had to take action, massive action. This film, as many of you know, has gone on to win more than 12 awards around the world, beginning with the Cannes Film Festival last year, and has been a finalist or officially selected to more than 25 film festivals globally. My purpose is not to collect accolades, but rather to continue to amplify the voices of this small community by giving our story the biggest stage in the world. Festivals from Greece to Croatia, France to Sonoma, Fort Lauderdale, New York and Italy, and so many more have screened the film to their audiences. But the greatest satisfaction for me is knowing that I'm opening the eyes of the world to a human tragedy that they would never have understood or appreciated if this film had never been made. My role is far from over now. Now the mission is to make sure tens of millions of people see the film, especially the 16 million Lebanese in the diaspora. Because for change to truly come to Lebanon, we, outside Lebanon, must awaken and rise up in positions of leadership to assist our brethren back home. Hand in hand, we must redesign and rebuild Lebanon. Finally, I would like to add that I was fortunate. I had my own money and I had a home to mortgage to make this film. I was also supported by many enlightened and generous philanthropists, as well as the Australian government, among others. But what about the thousands like me who could be telling equally important stories but do not have the means? As philanthropists, we need to realise that giving in times of crisis is critical and praiseworthy. But I would like to ask you a question. If more resources were distributed to artists whose work we believed could impact and enlighten millions, would we not move the needle closer to solving some of the problems that keep us putting our hands in our pockets without, it seems, no end? Thank you for generously offering your gifts to help bring forth a more equitable and inclusive world. And thank you for spending time with me this morning. Thank you.